Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. Alright, hi, this is Attican and welcome to another Railway Empire Fundamentals video. This is an addendum to the Track Layout 101 video. And I'm going to stop right there and say if you are new to the game, or if you are struggling with the game, or if you're new to the game and struggling with the game, you need to go watch Track Layout 101. I had actually contemplated completely redoing it to catch it up with all the version updates that have come out since I made that video, but I went back and watched it to get a table of contents for what I would need to make, and I said, you know what, that's a good video. It has a lot of good stuff in it, and really, again, I would highly recommend you watch it. I know it's self-serving, I know it's my video, but I really think you need to go watch that one and learn the basics of the game. What I'm going to do in this addendum is catch up with some of the updates that have happened since that video was made. That video was made shortly after the game release went public, or the initial release of the game. And there's been some pretty big changes. The game still plays exactly the same, but there have been some big changes to the way we can do our signals and our crossings and merge lines, and also visibility into what's going on in terms of how busy our platforms are. So we're going to talk about those things in this little quick addendum. So let me quit talking about what we're going to talk about and get to showing you something. All right, so the first thing I want to cover is what are my options or different methods I could use for setting up my lines into my stations. And I'm going to assume you've watched the other video, so you know the terminology I'm using, like station, platform, track, and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing is I want to show you, actually, let me put another station down on the other end, our usual Toledo to Grand Rapids run. And the first connection to talk about is really my preferred. This is how, if you watch my videos, this is how I play most of my games. I have experimented with other methods, and I do play some games with other methods, and there are things I do different ways. But my favorite connection, or junction with a city, is to do what I call point-to-point. Now, point-to-point connection means that we're making a dedicated line between two platforms. So we're going to lay double-sided track, but it's only going to go into one track on this station and one track on the other end. So one platform to one platform. So then we set our signals, and we're also going to talk about the signal setting a little bit too. But we'll set our signals, set up our interim signals, put in our supply towers, you know, whatever, all that good stuff that we need to do to have a working line. But that's one way to do it. This is what I call point to point, where there are dedicated lines to serve a specific purpose. Now, why do this versus others? Well, first of all, let me show you the others, and then we'll come back to this one and talk about why I tend to use this one most of the time. Now, the easiest way to do that, I'm going to stick a warehouse out here, out in the sunshine where we can see it. And we'll talk about other ways to access your tracks. Now, this one, of course, the strong point for it is that there's only one track that these trains can go into. And we're going to ignore line jumping. That's covered in Track Layout 101. But I'm assuming you know what that is. But if you have a line set up to go into one track, trains running on this line are going to go where? They're going to go into that one track. It's all they can do. Now, the other way to design it is to have access to multiple tracks. So let's talk about some options for doing that. The simplest, easiest one that I've been able to come up with or seen anybody do, and I'd love for you guys to contribute if you've got a favorite, is to have a line coming out of the middle two of a 4-platform station. So I'm using a warehouse, but you'll notice there's 4 platforms on a large train station. There's 2 as well, so it works the same way. So what you do here is you take lines coming out of the middle 2, tracks 2 and tracks 3. Then you take your outside tracks and link them in like this. Then we put an X, and this, by the way, here's our first piece of new functionality from the original Track Layout 101. We can now do something we specifically could not do when that video was made, is make these little X crossings or diamonds, whatever you want to call them. But you'll notice there we have 4 tracks coming out into these 2 tracks, but they cross each other. And what that does is it gives us the ability to come in from over here on the right and go to any of these 4, because we can go to these 2, or we can cross over and go to these 2. And when we're leaving the station, we can come out on any of the 4 and either just continue on the track we're on or cross over to the other one. And of course, we want to always set these things up to be one-way streets, so to speak. So you want to force your traffic to go in like this and out on this side. But that simple little thing we just built there, this simple little diamond, allows access to all 4. That is the simplest, cleanest way I know of to do it. Now, when you're playing the game and you want to use these 2 platform connections, a lot of times you'll start out, in fact, let's just do that. Let's start with a small, here, let's put a small train station, and you can go see a lot of my strategy videos. One of the strategies I really like to use is rapid expansion. So in that, it's very specifically uses small train stations, and 2 in each city, in order to, 1, keep down the cost and allow you to quickly expand, but 2, to block out the opponent. So in other words, your competitors can't come in there if you've already got 2 stations. So that's just a quick aside as to have that strategy. But if you start out with a single, and this single's going out, and I'm just going to run it, I'll just run it over here to this just to give it another end to hang on to. It really doesn't matter. But imagine it's going to a different city. It could be going up to Toledo, it could be going down here to Louisville, whatever. So when you first start out, you're going to start out with the point-to-point. So you're going to have, our point-to-point line. I don't even need to send it all the way out. We're just interested in this end back here. So now I've got a point-to-point connection. That's how I start my game. Now later on, as I want to, so you can see, I can come into that, I can come out, everything's cool. Later on, you'll start expanding your stations and building more. So what you want to do there, in this case, we would expand the station. And all we have to do now to make this a double is we just need to delete the last little part of track here. And for those of you who are really new, when you delete, let me start over. If I hit the demolish, if I click this right now, it would delete the entire line, all the way up to wherever there's a tower or the next station or wherever. But if I hold down, and this is a PC console, you'd have a different thing, but I'm sure you have similar commands. I would hold down my shift and click like that. It puts this little marker, and now I can either delete that end or I can delete that end. So now I'm going to delete this little piece of track, and now that gives me the opportunity to run this guy in, and now I'm hooked up to 2 tracks. So my main track here is coming into 2 tracks. I put my little X down right outside the platforms like so. Make sure that my signals are running the right way. And there we go. Now we have access to 2 tracks. Well, later on, if you're still following this thing going down the road, and you say, oh, well, I need more tracks, say you need a 3rd track, or a 3rd and a 4th track. So you would expand the station, and now I have 4 platforms, but I'm only able to hit 2 of them. Now you got a couple of options. One option is to go like this. Just build kind of another set of 2, but have them come out and hook up with the first one. And the way I did that was I came out and then I merged with the first line. Then you go right in front of that one and merge over to the right hand side. Now the new functionality is going to think, well, maybe you want to build a cross there, but we actually don't. What we're going to do is come here, click. We're going to click again here to kind of snap it into place on that line. Then we're just going to drag and keep pushing up until we get a merge with that line over there. This is what I call our old school merger. This is how we did it before all the new functionality. So now what I have, once I get my signals set, put my signals back here. Okay, now we have the ability, we can even put a signal in here and say this one's only to the right, and this one, we want this one to be to drive on the right. Now I have two sets of two tracks, so trains coming down will make a decision right here, which set of two tracks do I use. So now again I have the opportunity to run lines into track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4. Okay, this is how you would expand off of a single platform. And of course, if we wanted to, another way we could do that, if you really like the other style that we're using, what we could do then, and let's get rid of this as if we hadn't built it. So let's just say let's go kind of roll back to the way we were, where we had a single line coming in like that. Now, if I wanted to turn that into a 4 and use a consistent approach to what we did, where is it? Over here. If I wanted to use if I said, oh, I like that connection, it's simple, it's clean, I want all 4 tracks available, then all we need to do is just back up both of our lines. So we set a marker and we delete, we set a marker and we delete, and then we would run our lines back into the middle ones, like so, and like so. Then, of course, we would just simply come out and merge over to the side quickly as we can. Do the same thing over here. Put our little X out in front of it, like so. Set our signals. And now we've converted that one point-to-point line into the accessibility for all 4 platforms, so this line can come in and go out of all 4 platforms in Indianapolis. So that's how you would convert it into that simple crossover. So I think the 2 basic ones I would see are the point-to-point and then this very, very simple one. And by the way, another recommendation, particularly if you're new, keep your junctions, keep these intersections as simple as you can. If you get them overly complex, you will mess them up. You'll stare at them and swear they're correct. Then you'll start playing the game, and you'll wander off over here somewhere. You'll be doing something over in this part of the map or wherever, and you're working and working and working, and then you'll see all these error messages flashing, and then you'll come back here and see this giant traffic jam because something is messed up. So try to keep these as simple as you can. It's another reason I like the point-to-point. You can't get any simpler than it. All right, so there's the simple one. Now let's talk about just one more, just for the sake of going over everything. Let's talk about if I know that I'm going to have an extremely busy line here. I know I'm going to have a lot of trains running it. This is going to be my big city. Think of the metropolis scenario where you have to build New York City to 250,000 people. You got stuff coming in from all over. Maybe you didn't use a lot of warehouses. Maybe you're shipping stuff directly into your stations. You got train lines coming from all over the place. How do I keep that under control? Well, there's one thing is, first of all, what we just kind of tore down would do that to an extent because I've got access to all 4 platforms. The problem with that approach is I have this one point where all the trains have to line up and make a decision, right? So if you can imagine, if I have a lot of traffic coming in here, they're all going to queue up, and each train is going to line up back here waiting for its turn to come into the station. So what we'd want to do is give it more room to play, so to speak. So let's go back to the one, let's think of it like this. Let's think of it as if I had, let's go back, in fact, let's go all the way back to, I'm getting a lot of practice deleting, and so far I'm amazed myself I haven't deleted an entire line yet. Eventually I will. Let's go back to this one. Let's go back to this point where we had the 2 tracks running. So we had 2 tracks coming in to here, and we had a crossover, right? and we had our signals set to make those lines run correctly. That's our main line coming in. It comes into those platform 1 and platform 2. We've expanded out to 3 and 4 now, but we know we're going to have a lot of traffic coming in. And one way we can handle that would be to run these out a ways. And I think I've said before, run them out like 20 miles. You could do it even a little further if you wanted to. But what we want to do is give ourselves some space. Now I clicked there and locked it. Now I'm going to bump over. Then I'm going to bump over again and accept that. Then I'm going to ignore the opportunity to make the X, and I'm going to go back here and I'm going to lock this one. I'm going to snap it into place, and then I'm just going to drag and push it up until it comes back in and merges. All right. So now what we've created is a decision point right out here. So we can, and if we go back here and we put in our X's, our X, okay, we build our little X down here, and we could set our signals and say, I want you to drive on the right, drive on the right, and we could even give it interim signals as much will fit. But point being that when I come down to here, now I have a decision as to which set of tracks do I want to use. So we can put an X right here. And now every train that comes down can make a decision way out here. Am I going to use this set of tracks or this set of tracks? So essentially what you've done is set up a situation where trains could queue up in a line on this track to come into the station. They could queue up on a line on this track as well to come into the station. Now, queuing up over here would give them access to 1 and 2. Queuing up over here would give them access to track 3 and track 4. And then they could exit either one, go out their appropriate side, and then come out here and remerge and kind of go on their merry way back out into the main trunk line. So that gives us a little bit of more room so that you can queue up more and kind of have two different places, so these trains as they're coming down can split off and queue up in two different stacks to go into this. So that would handle probably a little more traffic a little more smoothly, but again, that's a little more complicated and not necessarily you don't necessarily have to go there or want to go there if that simple one can suffice. And let me just put that on the other side just to show you how super simple it is. Lines coming out of 2 and 3. We merge quickly on either side. That gives us all 4 lanes. We put an X right out here. That gives us the opportunity to come in. We're driving on the right hand side, and we're going to come in like this. We can pick any of the 4. Whichever one we pick, we can go back out and get over here to the right hand side and leave the station. So you can have this one or you can have this one, and they would both work beautifully and they would both handle decent traffic. This one would probably handle a little more traffic. And if you really wanted to go crazy with this, and let me just show you what happens. If you have the situation where you're doing this one, where you've got the point-to-point connections, you probably, if you've watched my videos, you've seen me build lines like this. This is, one of you referred to this, I loved it, you called it the Superhighway of Track. And of course these lanes would go on and on, they would go out to wherever they're trying to go. But I'm just going to build, just to show you the example. Okay, so there's two, and we could even have a third one. Whoops. The third one coming out. Like so, that goes off to wherever. It could be going out to a rural station. It could be going out to another platform, another city, whatever. So there's three full sets of lines. We could even have a fourth one, and I've absolutely built them where I had 4 lines running in like that into a single station. Now, if we look at that, we could say, well, geez, what a mess. My God, you got so much track. Look at all this track you've laid. True, but let me ask you this. Can you see how efficient that would be as trains are coming in on dedicated lines? They're coming, and remember, all these train lines are going out and they're going to wherever they go. So let me just extend one out. Let's see if I can figure out where we're. Let's just take this this last one here. Maybe it's going out to who knows where. It could be going over to Indianapolis. It could be going up here to this cotton field up here and bringing cotton in. And maybe there's a textile industry there. So there's a line coming in, and here's a line that's matching up with it. And there's a little point-to-point connection out here at the station. And we set signals, and I'll talk about the signal setting here in a minute. But can you see how, and these 2 sets of tracks would be going off to wherever. This set of tracks going up to Grand Rapids. Maybe this the set next to them is going up to who knows, this cattle. Maybe the third one's going over here, like I said, to Indianapolis. It could be whatever. But because these are dedicated lines, you never have to worry about, for example, the cotton. If you're running 3 or 4 trains of cotton into Toledo to satisfy that clothing industry, or the cloth maker, the weaving industry, so they're coming in. They don't merge with anybody. There's no mergers on this. They just drive into their platform and they drive back out, and it's the only one they could possibly go to. The big line here between Grand Rapids and Toledo that would have a lot of trains on it carrying stuff back and forth. Maybe it's a passenger line. Maybe it's a automatic line carrying passengers, mail, and freight. Maybe it's a freight line. Doesn't matter. But it just comes straight in, doesn't merge with anybody, does its thing, comes back out, runs unimpeded, smooth as can be. So while you lay a lot of track, you get really good throughput, and everything is smooth. And honestly, this may look complicated. This is actually simpler. You make very few mistakes. At least for me, I make very few mistakes when I build these point-to-point lines. I have found that there are times when I start building lines like this or like this, and I've got to get my switches straight and what platforms to use and all that good stuff. That's when I tend to make mistakes. But a better player than me, and there are lots of you out there, could do that with no trouble. For me, I just love my little superhighways because those superhighways are such amazing throughput. The trains just do not block each other. They do not wait on each other. The only train that a cotton train will ever wait on is another cotton train. It will not wait on a log train or a city-to-city line or the meat coming in or whatever, the corn coming in or wheat or something from a warehouse. It will never wait. It will only wait on another cotton train. So we just keep a steady flow of cotton. We keep steady flow of everything. You get the point. Okay. So that's the fully blown up point-to-point using all 4 platforms. Here's one where you've got probably for heavy traffic where you've got 2 sets of 2, and here's one where you have the simplest of all, and I would advise using this one in most cases if you're going to open up all 4 platforms, where you just simply have this little simple line where all 4 of them are together, 1x, set your signals, off you go. All right, So that's some options. There are other ways to do this. I could probably show you many other ways that we could hook these up, and I'm sure some of you, maybe some of you watching, have better ideas. I'd love to hear if you have better notions for how to do this. But at any rate, those are the keys. Now, let's talk about if we use one of these approaches. Let's talk about running lines and what that means. And I'm going to have to go out here. Let's go out here and set from our warehouse. Let's set up finish off that line. And I'm not going to get into the why do lines run, why do lines not run. That's in Track Layout 101. Please do watch that video if you're a beginner, or if you need a refresher, or if you just find yourself struggling with this stuff. Okay, so there's our beautiful little X. We set our signals, and we put in a supply tower. And that's a topic for another day. How many supply towers and where do you place them and all that good stuff. All right, so when I'm setting a line, so say I want to set up a line from this warehouse to Indianapolis. Notice here, all 4 platforms are available to me. Why is that? Because we have this nice junction down here that opens them all 4 up. When I go to Indy, all 4 of them are available. But here's the new functionality from when I made the Track 101. We now can see how much usage, relatively speaking, each of the tracks getting. So if I set up this line from Track 1 to Track 1, and I will run decapods, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to set up 3 trains to run on that line. Okay, so as soon as that third one comes out, we'll have 3 trains running. Notice them, they're all coming out. They're all empty because we got nothing in here, but it doesn't matter. This is for demo purposes. So here comes our trains in, and now if we look at our station here, Track 1 is getting 57% utilization, 0, 0, 0. So now if we wanted to set up another line from here, we can see that we've got 57% on Track 1 at the warehouse as well. If we go from Track 2 from the warehouse, and then we go to Indianapolis, and we can see 57% there. If we go to Track 2 in Indy, now we're starting to spread our load, and we can, let's just run a couple so we'll get a different number. 1, 2. So now we've got 2 trains running from the warehouse on Track 2. And let's go back and like we're setting up another line. And we can see that in the warehouse, 57% on Track 1, 38% on Track 2. Same thing in Indy, right? Because they're matching. So in other words, the new functionality is this ability, as we're setting up a line, to see how busy the track is. That's very, very useful. That has made using this kind of a connection, let me clear all this out of the way, this kind of a connection or this kind of a connection, to me, more viable than before when I played exclusively using these point-to-point dedicated lines. It's more viable now because I can see my traffic, and so if I wanted to, like say if I was going to merge a line, okay, I've decided I want to pick up sugar, and I want to run a line of sugar into my, and I'm going to cover the merging here in a minute, but I'm just going to do it real quick to finish off this discussion. So now if I wanted to run a line of sugar into that station directly, okay, I just do my merger, which you saw how super easy it is, and I will go through that in a minute. Now I can see, obviously there's only one platform available in Stark Manor. That's out here at my sugar because I've got the small station out there. So I say, yeah, run full, go to Indy, and this may not even, and now I can put it where I want to. I can say, well, go on Track 3. I can add a locomotive, and this may not move. Let's just see if it will. No, it won't. So I'm going to change it and have it run. That's because sugar is not in demand in Indianapolis yet. But, boom, go. Now it'll run. It'll come down here and it'll merge. It'll wait for its turn to get on the track. There it goes. It's going happily into the city. It'll go into the track that we told it to go into. It'll go into track 3, and that'll be the end of that. So that makes this kind of an approach flexible and more usable because I can see the load in my station. Okay, enough of that. Now, all right, that's probably enough about the platforms and how you set them up. I would recommend another video I have called Platform Station Usage, which goes into more depth and detail about that whole idea of spreading out your loads and how you set them up and all that kind of stuff, and gives you different techniques for doing that. Okay, so let's talk about merging lines. You saw me do that merge right there, so let's just talk about the basic merge. Okay, we have let's run this one to the actual city. So we've got cattle out here. We want to run it into Indianapolis and sell it. So here's how we do a merge. We click and start on one end. We start dragging our line out here. Now in the past we had to come down and kiss, and then we had to accept that, and then move over one, accept that, move over another one, accept that. Now, new functionality, and I'm going to worry about which version gave us what. This is just all new stuff from Track Layout 101, from the Track Layout 101 time period. Notice how now I can come down and actually set my marker right on that outside track. Now, if I set it there and accept it, it gives me this neat little cone, and I can go back like this, and I can snap it to the track on the inside that I want, and then I can run back and do my thing, finish off my track, and voila, I have now a beautiful intersection, just exactly what I would want. The ability for track one coming here to go over this way or to continue down, one coming down through here to cross over and get over to the right. Beautiful. That's beautiful. It's just what you want. And it was super easy. You saw how easy that was. And now while we're here, let's talk about setting these signals. If I hit signals, now you'll also notice I've been using stop signals. And by the way, I'm not even going to attempt. There are several of you who have sent me such great comments. One of you, I cannot, and I'm not going to try to name anybody because I don't want to leave people out. But long comment about all the different things about setting up your lines. Some of it even beyond my understanding at this point. I'll hope to grow into it, but I want to share what I can with you. But several of you have also given me some great ideas about how to use the signals more effectively. Now, one of the things is, you'll notice I'm setting now everything is a stop signal, meaning, now let me show you what I mean. That right there is a normal signal. If I click on it, and I'll use the PC instructions, you console users will figure it out. I'm going to hold shift and click on it. Notice I get this stop sign which says do not come this way. In other words, it says you cannot drive. If you're going from the bottom of our screen to the top of our screen, you can't drive on this lane because of that stop sign. So you have to go over here. But that's how you set track to be one way. You say you can't come this way. So let me delete that. Now here's the beauty though. When I did that merge, it gave us all this track down here coming into that track. Notice it has picked up the direction from the track because I already have stop signals set everywhere. Notice that every one I set is a stop signal. That's something else. One of you gave me the beautiful hint on that. But here I'm going to combine that with this one here, which is if I hit Control Shift, this is on PC, console again, it'll be something else. Notice what it's done. Now I haven't accepted it yet, but I'm just holding it there. And you'll notice, well here, let me go ahead and click it. I'll click it and set it, okay? Notice that it went down here to as far as it could and set one, and then ran them back from that spot, which is perfect. That's exactly what you would want to do. You would want to tell a train coming out of that cattle ranch to go down here as far as you can and wait your turn to get in line and then cross over and go do your thing, right? Same thing coming back. If I'm holding Control, Shift. Now the Control puts in the interim signals, and then the Shift makes them all stop signs or stop signals, and then I accept that. Notice it came up here to as far as it could, which is exactly what you'd want, and then it set the interim signals all the way down, and it gave us space here so that we could make sure that a train coming down here could get all the way out of the way before it moved through, so you wouldn't have traffic jams. Beautiful. It does exactly what you'd want it to do, and I didn't have to really, I didn't do anything. I just hit Control and Shift. Console again, whatever commands you do to do the similar thing. So now when we set up a line from our ranch to Indianapolis, and we will make this one run full because they need cattle in Indianapolis. They have a meat industry. And now we can see our track usage, and we could say, okay, well, why don't you just go in 4? It's nice and empty. And let's run that decapod again. And let's run 4 trains on this one. So we got a bunch of decapods lined up, and what they'll do is there goes our first one, and then our second one will come on board, and they'll start loading up, and down they'll go. And you'll watch him come down here. He comes down to our signal that we set, and he just chugs right along, and beautiful. And he'll go down here to and by the way, those arrows mean it's just saying we've got no freight to carry, because this is just an example, but we do have freight with this one. So where'd our big train go? Here he comes. Let me speed this up. We'll watch him come down just as an example. Remember, we're using, now notice how he moved over to this set of tracks. He goes into 4, which is what we told him to do. He'll come out on this right-hand side, and then he'll move over and merge right back into the main line and go up here and go back off. He stops and gets some supplies, and then he comes back here, and there we go. So that was a simple merge, super simple, and the new functionality makes it that way. Okay, let's do one more just to make sure we got it. So let's do one. Let's do this. I'm going to put a train station up here and show you how to do one where you want to go both ways. So say you wanted to come out of that train station, and you wanted to come down here and run a line that could go to Grand Rapids or go to Toledo. So it could go up the screen or down the screen, north or south. So we would just come down like so. We would come down here and see our line, and we would go either to the inside or the outside. Let's do this one to the inside just because we did the last one to the outside. I usually go outside if I have a choice. But there's a line, and we're going to have another line coming down like this. Oh, that's funny. I just goofed up. Okay. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Oh, I did it right. All right, so line coming down, and it's going to go to the inside. Notice it gave us our cone, our little cone we can grab. We click on that, drag back, and lock it, snap it to this track on the side we want, finish our connection, and look at that. Beautiful connection already made, sort of automatic. Now we're going to use our signaling that we just learned. We're going to just hover here in the middle, hit Control Shift. It's going to automatically go down here and set it up. We're going to do the same thing on going back. It automatically goes all the way back. And it almost worked, except I goofed up one thing. Now, what's wrong with this one? Why won't this one work? Because there's no crossing here. There's no way to get across the track, so we can't use both sides of these. So what we're going to have to do, I'll go into signal mode and delete that last one there. And all we have to do, of course, to open this up is to put in our little X coming right out of the station. And then set our signals. Oh, and this is a nice feature too. Notice how this is spread. If I just move back a little ways, and we'll hit that Control Shift, and it'll automatically find that longest spot, that closest spot up it connect. And now we have signals set for that whole line going down through there, and now I can run a line. I can say, why don't you run out of track 1 and go to Grand Rapids. Now in Grand Rapids, what are we going to do? It has no choice, right? It has to go to track 1. Why is that? Because we've got a point-to-point connection down here. Now obviously we could expand Grand Rapids out and run it any way we wanted to, but we're going to obviously go into track 1. That's our only choice right now. So we're going to say go. Oh, and by the way, I should say that. You should go back and call this line. It'd be a good practice to call it a freight-only line, because it is. I should have been doing that over here. It's a habit I haven't developed yet. Give it a locomotive. We can even give it a security guard, although that's way beyond the scope of what we're doing here. So let's just run 3 trains down through there, and they'll run happily to Grand Rapids. Let's say we wanted to merge in and run into our Toledo line as well. Well, what we would do here is we would grab the inside track to the inside track like this and build. You could decide, there you go, that looks nice and symmetrical, and build. We snap on it here, we drag it down, we snap on it there, and makes our connection. We accept it. We grab our little cone, we go back along this, and we have to snap it in place to tell it, okay, we're driving on this side, we want you to build on this side. Then we just drag up here till we hit this other cone and click, and voila. Now we have our connection the other way. And those of you who have watched Track Layout 101 will remember I built one like this using the old style, and it was a job. It was a real job. This is super easy. Now we get our signals out, and we got this new section. So notice I'm holding down Control Shift. When I get over to this track, it goes down there and sets me one. I go up here, it sets me one up here. Beautiful. It's exactly what you want. And now we can say, okay, now let's go out of track 2, the one we're not using, and let's run some full wheat trains to Toledo. And in Toledo, we only have track 1. Now, why can we only go to track 1? There's all that track down there. It's because, again, this is the example of all of our point-to-point. So any train that's going to come down through here is going to run on this line and this line only. Okay, so boom, there we go. Run a train. Let's give it a couple, and off they'll go, and they'll run on that line happy as can be. Okay, and of course I didn't put towers in, so let's put a tower on it. Well, got one on that side. Okay, all right. So there's a simple merge. In fact, there's a nice, fairly complex merge that was super easy to build with the new functionality. All right. Let's see. What else would we like to look at? Oh, and just to finish off this thought, let's take this line here. I'm going to run this line all the way up like so, and run it into Toledo. Let's say we were doing our point-to-point thing, our Superhighway of Track, and we would run it back on the other side all the way down here to where I stubbed it out. So now I've got this track here. We look at this one and this one are able to go back and forth to Toledo. Let me set signals on that. And when you have a supply tower, it interrupts that signal flow, so you have to go on the other side of the tower and set more signals. So we had 2 towers on this one, so there we go. Now we got, notice how it gave us our nice signal down there. Everything's beautiful. And now what we could do is set up our line that goes from here to here. And if we come out of track 2, then it's only going to allow us to go to track 2. We would want to still say, that's the one we want you to use. Let's run an automatic line. And let's run one back the other direction. We'll come out of track 2. And we'll go over here, and of course it can only allows us to go to track 2. Run an automatic line. And let's load this one up. We got 2 trains. Let's load this one up. And put 3, 4, 5, 6. Now shoot, let's really load it up. 7 and 8 trains. And I am going to set maintenance here because it is getting, we've been running a little bit. I don't want to see a bunch of breakdowns. Already seeing some. Okay, so now look at all these trains that are going through here. We have 8 trains running happily ever after. Now notice they are queuing up, but that's because I fired them off one right after the other. But the only thing they could possibly ever wait on is each other, so to speak. These trains can go. Notice these trains are never stopping. The only thing that would ever stop them will be themselves, so to speak. In other words, the other wheat trains. And what you could do then, of course, is say, well, you know, this track out here has plenty of room on it. I'm barely using it, whereas this one's getting 26%. This one's only 6%. This platform down here is at 158%. See, I ran a lot of trains there. That's why we're seeing some queuing. That's a lot of trains going back and forth. This one over here is only 38%. I could throw more stuff on there. And so it would be very, very easy for me to take this log station right here, or log business, and run a line and merge it up here before the split, which would then give me the ability to run logs to either city. So we could very, very easily go out here like this. I click, I drag, I pick a spot, and let's do it on the outside. So now I'm merging to the outside lane. I accept that, grab my little, click on my little cube, whatever you call that thing. I click here to lock it into place on that side of the track, and then I just drag it down and finish off my little point-to-point into that station. Hit my signals, Control Shift and click on either side. Beautiful, perfect signals. Even do our little technique if we want to make sure that these log trains can get off. A quick explanation there. When these trains go out full, when they come back, they're empty when they're going to these rural stations, so they can queue up closer. And we want to make sure that they come out and get off this line so they're not holding up the other things that are running on the line. So we can use this technique here to get those trains out of the way, and I'll show you. Let's run a line from here to here and run 3 trains on it. Whoops. 1, 2, 3. And there they go, and they're running beautifully. And in fact, let's expand this. And this is a good review. If I expand the station and I want 2 tracks, I can either drag another point to point out, but in this case, I'd really like to share. So what I'm going to do here, oh, here we go. Here's an example. See, this one's loading up, and it's still waiting on logs from this. Now, this one's stopped way up here. If I had more trains, they would queue up here and not stay out here on the track. So that's the idea there. But again, if I wanted to change this, now what I might have to do to upgrade this to kind of my double connection is I may have to get rid of a train and then delete a small section of this track. The train has to get out of the way so it's not trying to use the track I'm trying to delete. And then I would go ahead and put my little cross back in, like so. Check my signals. I'll just change those to all directional to be consistent. So now this line is working again, and I might want to, if I decided 3 was the right number, I might want to replace that one that I deleted. But now what I'm going to do is set up a line that goes from here on track 2, platform 2, which isn't being used, and goes down here to Toledo, and it can only go, of course, to track 1 because of our point-to-point style connection. And throw a train on that, and notice it can be over here loading. Now, why did it load so quickly and take off? Because Toledo has right now open demand for logs, whereas our other trains have filled that demand in Grand Rapids. Again, that's kind of off topic here, but this one is loading slowly because it's matching the usage of the logs in Grand Rapids. The other one, Toledo, we hadn't shipped any logs yet, so it had an immediate need, and off they went. All right, so there's loading up. There's using point-to-point connections. Again, you can imagine, we could have another set of tracks here going off to whatever, to that cattle farm or to another city or whatever we wanted to do. And you could also mix and match. Let's just do that real fast. We'll mix and match. Here's our line coming out of Toledo. And let's run it around. And maybe or maybe not you would do it like this. But let's just say we were going to run it around for whatever reason. We wanted to join it up with this line over here, which happens to have a different kind of connection. This one's using our normal, our expose all 4 tracks kind of a deal. No big problem, no problem whatsoever. So we're just going to drag, if it'll let us. I may have to delete some of this. Yeah. Here we go, that's better. All right, so we're going to drag that second line around and bring it on around here and connect it in like so. Now we've already got our X down here. It's already got the ability to use all 4 stations. Make sure we've got our signals right. Set them for the whole line. And now all we have to do is say, okay, I want to go from here to here. So you can see track 3 is the only one that's connected up, so that's the one I'll use. And in Indianapolis, I've got my choice. And I can pick, and now here's, let's just talk about a different technique. I can also spread this load. If I know I'm going to run several trains, I can spread the load. So let's just say I'm going to run the first train to track 1 and have it go. Then I'm going to copy that train. I'm going to edit its line and say, I want you to go to track 2. Then I'm going to copy that train again, edit its line, and I want you to go to track 3. Then I'm going to copy that train again, edit its line, and say, I want you to go to track 4. Now watch what happens when these trains come in here. There's one into track 1. Here comes our next one into track 2. The other one goes right back out. Beautiful. Here comes our next one. He'll go into track 3. Beautiful. Our other trains are coming in from the other side. Notice there, that one had to wait because he was also using 3. Here comes one into track 4, and off he goes the other way. So what we've done here is connect a point-to-point connection on this end to a kind of a 4-track connection, or whatever you're going to call it, down on this end. So there we go. There's mergers. There's point-to-point connections. There's the 2 different ways of doing our multiple track connections. How to merge a line and how to build the kind of a Y intersection or T or whatever you call this, where you can go in 2 different directions. And what's the other thing we would like to do? Cross. We need to cross lines. Let's say for some reason that we needed to build a line that ran, oh goodness, doesn't matter. What do I want to do? I want to cross. Okay, I'm just going to go up here and grab this wheat. We wanted to run wheat. Now notice we haven't used any warehouses or anything. That's a different topic. Okay, but I want to run wheat, and I want to run it over here, and I actually want to let's just say I want to join it up with this line right here and then run it into Louisville. That's something you could absolutely see yourself doing. So we're going to come down like this, and we're going to merge with either track, inside or outside. So we'll click on it like that, and you'll notice it gave us a bridge. Now we could deal with that bridge and, you know, make it a little smaller and cheaper, but that's getting a pretty high rise on it, so maybe we would drag it out a little bit, spread it a little bit, try to make it a little less of an incline. 4 degrees, that's not bad. Yeah, that's pretty good. And maybe we could accept it like that, and we would accept, and then trains would come in and cross over a bridge. And then of course we could build it going back by just simply clicking on our little thing here, dragging back. Off we go, boom, there we go. Now we've got a connection, set our signals, and we could run wheat that merges into this line and goes into Indianapolis at whichever platform we chose. Now, if we didn't want to pay the expense of that bridge, or we didn't want to have a bridge period, what we could do, and there's a trade-off here between cost, convenience, and throughput. Bunch of trade-offs. So let's say we drag a line out like this, and we come down here and we connect it to our outside, same thing we did, we got that bridge. What we have the choice of doing now is to have a crossing line, a flat crossing, where we can go like this, and I'm going to just hold this down and drag, drag, drag until I get, boom, I get a nice straight line. Now what it's going to do is set up a straight line, a flat crossing, if you will. So see this track, the green part, is going to literally cross as an intersection across these 4 tracks. Now, would we do this one like this? I would guess not, because we've got a heavy traffic line here, another heavy traffic line here. That might not be the best design in the world. But if we wanted to, we could, and bang, here we go. And see what it does. It creates a nice flat crossing. Now, that was super easy, right? Now here's where it's not so easy. If we go back, I click on my diamond, I come out, I snap it in place, I come up here, and I want to go up here like so. Now notice what it did. It made a bridge again. That's because you can't put these 2 tracks directly next to each other when they're crossing like this, unfortunately. So what I would do if I had this situation, I would snap it in place, kind of close, and then I would take this last piece. Now if I really wanted to have it a flat crossing, I would just click in here somewhere, right where you see that little flag that pops up. See how there's no flag? Now there's a flag. That means I'm over the track I can edit. So I would click on that and just drag this over toward it until I got a straight line. That's actually a pretty good one right there. I would try to edge it over as close as I could get to that, but then it's not going to work. But right there is pretty good. And that would give me a pretty clean line. I'll accept that. And you'll notice we've got flat crossings going every which way. That's all good. The only thing wrong with it, of course, you get that gap in the middle there. So, and that's unavoidable. There has to be some gap. And you basically just have to play with it and pull it over as close as you can get it, as straight as you can get it, and now you've got a line that crosses. And what we can do now, again, is use our signals. I'm going to Control Shift and click, Control Shift and click. Notice it came down here as close as it could. I'm going to do the same thing here. There we go. Now we have a line where I could set up a track from here to here. I can say, obviously it's going to run out of that track, it's only available one. Let run full and go to Indianapolis. And we could spread this or we could not spread it. Let's just run them into track 3. 1, 2. We'll run 3 trains and we'll have those trains run down. Now here's our first train coming down right here. I'll slow this down. So here's our first train coming down, and he's fortunate. There's not a lot of trains for him to compete with. Notice he just drives right over that track and just heads on his merry way. He'll come down here and he'll merge just like a normal merge, and he'll come down here and do his thing. Here comes our next train down. Now notice it's a little crowded. He had to slow down. He had to slow down for one. This guy had to slow down for him. So this is the design consideration you have to make. If we had stuck with the bridge, these guys would not interact with each other. These trains would go over the bridge. They would cross over this track. We wouldn't have this problem. But it's not much of a problem. See that? There are only minor slowdowns, not even enough to worry about, really. There has to be a lot of traffic for you to really be concerned about this. And again, I forgot supply towers. It's my favorite mistake. Okay, so that's how you do your crossings. Okay, so let's wrap up here. I wanted to make this a quick video, and of course I've talked way too much. We talked about how we can do a simple 4-platform connection like this. Lines coming out of the middle two, immediate merges from the outside, an X out here, set your signals, you're good to go. That's a lovely one. We talked about one where if you're thinking you're going to have more traffic, you can do one where you have 2 sets of 2 with the X's here and a decision point out here for those trains to decide which set of signals they want to use. That just gives you a longer runway, kind of doubles up your runway in case you're going to have queuing trains. We have another simple one over here, and we talked about point-to-point connections, and we even showed our kind of superhighway of train tracks here, where we've got all kinds of trains running in and out of stations all over the place, and everything running beautifully there. We talked about how to do merges, how to do simple merges, how do we do a little more complex merge that could go in 2 directions. We talked about how to merge into a line that's going into a merge, and we talked about how to do the crossings if you want the flat crossing versus having bridges or tunnels to go over or under your track. All right, so those are, and we also talked about the whole deal of when I'm setting up a line, how I can now see the utilization in each of the tracks. Okay, and you notice that one too, that number 2, their track. That's that city to city where I loaded up just a whole bunch of trains on there. And it's probably got more trains than it needs. But at any rate, you'll notice that even at that high usage, we do have 3 trains queued up. That's unnecessary. That's a great thing to look at, is when you're setting these up. If you're looking at a line, when you see it getting up like this 81%, let's see how that's working. That's this track up here. This is track 1. You notice it's running very nicely. It's under 100%, and it's running pretty smoothly. We're not seeing a lot of delays, but we are seeing delays when we get over 100. So that's a good thing to look at. When you get up to this kind of thing, you probably would be better off if you just did not run so many trains. If I just got rid of a couple of trains and let it go. Now let's see what kind of utilization we are now. 119, that's probably a little better. Might even want to cut out another one. But we wouldn't want to run so many trains that the trains are doing a lot of waiting. That's what you want to avoid. And the whole point of the game, really, to me, some of the keys to the games are you want to run full trains whenever possible, and you want to get in and out of these platforms. The whole throughput through the platforms is really the limiting factor. That's what drives how many trains and how fast you can go. It's not this track out here. This track out here, if you notice our utilization out here, 19%, that's nothing. This is 13%, nothing. We're barely touching those tracks. That's because they're covering a big distance. But when you get down here to these platforms and the train's queuing up, now we start getting into 61%, 119%, 81%. So the whole trick is how fast can I get trains through these platforms. Oh, and that reminds me, I did want to show you one other thing. Okay, one last thing I thought of I wanted to show you was really a bypass. So we're going to, kind of as a way of review, let's use our simple connections where we are hooking up all 4 platforms. So we're going to run a line from Grand Rapids to Toledo. We connect through tracks 2 and 3, the middle tracks. We merge from the outside immediately, like so. We put our X in front of that. And what I've kind of gotten in the habit of doing is setting my signals on one side. So that I have the directional set. And then I go down to the other end and set up my junction, my switches. Merge in from both sides, put in the X. And then I set my signals for this side, being very careful to get them going in the right direction. So turn around that way. There we go. And put in a supply tower. We'll put in a couple. Okay, now we have line between Toledo and Grand Rapids. Let's just put some trains on that. And we'll say out of track 1 to track 1. And pretty good practice is to go up to the other end and do the same thing. Track 1 to track 1. So we get stuff going in both directions right away. So now we've got 2 trains on there. Let's run a total of 6. That's 3. Notice I'm going to each. I'm copying the first one, copying the second one. That way I'm copying trains at both ends. So now I've got 6 trains queued up to run back and forth between there. Now let's just say we were going to do like a 3-city cluster, or we connected our city, whatever. Here we got Indianapolis, and we're running Indianapolis to Toledo. There we got a pretty nice straight line, so we accept that. We come out of the middle. Connect it in the other end. Do our quick merge. Put in our X's. Say drive on the right, go to the other end and set up our junction, our signals. So we go quick merge on both sides, set up the X, like so. And now we've got a line there. So now we can set up a line from Indy to Toledo. We could do track 1 here, and in Toledo we can do track 2. And let's run 4 trains there. I'll just do them all out of here. It doesn't matter for what I'm trying to show you. Okay, now let's say we've got in a 3-city cluster. You want a direct connection with each city needs to be directly connected to each of the other ones. Well, we might want to run a line from Indianapolis to Grand Rapids. Now, one way we could do that simply enough is just to go here to here. See, it will let us connect, but we'll notice its track is running through Indianapolis. And that would be fine. That would work just fine. You'll notice it also kind of went out. It's running through track 1 and track 4. but that's actually going to interfere. That's going to get held up by any trains coming into track 1, which is already utilized. We used to have to set these waypoints to tell it to go a different way, but what we're going to do now is we're going to build a bypass. So we're going to go from the inside there to the inside here, run it out till we get, then we have to go outside of Indianapolis, there. Except then we're going to grab our cone, come down here and click it so that it's lined up with that line, and then come down here. Good, we had just enough space. So now we've got a line that goes around Toledo. So we accept that, set our signals. Super easy to set our signals now. And now we can set up a line between here and here, and notice what it does automatically. Now this is a shorter route in this case, so it would take it because it's shorter, but it also, it now has the functionality. If you're running between two cities, it's passing by or could pass through another city. If there's a bypass, it'll automatically take that bypass. So we've set up this little piece of track right here, and now our line from Indy to Grand Rapids, no matter what tracks we run it out of. Let's run it out of track 2 and track 2. It doesn't matter which ones we choose, it's going to take that bypass to get up through there. So now we can set our locomotive, and we can go up to the other end and go Grand Rapids to Indy, and now here we could choose, depending if we're going to run a lot of trains, we could actually use a different track, but let's just go ahead and run track 2 to track 2 again. This is just coming from the other side. And by the way, a nice little trick. Now if I wanted to get just the trains running between Indy and Grand Rapids, I want to click right here and see how it's going to pull those up. Now I can do my copies. 1, 2, that makes 4, that makes 5, and that makes 6. Now I have trains running direct routes, Grand Rapids to Toledo, Toledo to Indianapolis, and now the one I just set up, Indianapolis to Grand Rapids. So I have my full 3-city cluster set up with just that simple amount of track. And by setting up this bypass, I've avoided traffic jams in Toledo with these trains that have no business going into Toledo, because they're really going from Grand Rapids. And see, here they are queuing up and they're coming across. Everything's looking great. So I just wanted to quickly show you that, and then of course we would be setting up our warehouses and all that stuff, but that's topics for another day. So I hope you found something in this that can help you with your game, and basically the point of this one was to just show you the different functionality that's out there now compared to when the Track Layout 101 was originally made. All right, so hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.